At Home with Music, I'm Leon Olguin. Do you know what a code is? Here's the basic definition. A code is a system of words, letters, figures, or other symbols substituted for other words, letters, etc., especially for the purposes of secrecy. A sample sentence might be, "The Americans cracked their diplomatic code." If you remember the movie A Christmas Story, you remember when Ralphie got his little orphan Annie decoder ring. And he used that to decode a message that was sent in code from little orphan Annie herself over the radio. And so the code was just a series of numbers. And Ralphie used his decoder ring to figure out what letters were represented by those numbers. And by doing so, he was able to decode the message and figure out what it was. And of course, it turned out to be, don't forget to drink your Ovaltine. Here's another definition for you. Cryptography is the practice and study of techniques for secure communication in the presence of adversarial behavior. You use a code so that the enemy can't read your messages. You have a message, you put it into code, and the person receiving the message knows the code. They can decipher that code and know the message, but an enemy might see it, not know the code. They don't know what you're talking about. And so your messages are safe from the eyes of the enemy. You use cryptography to create a cryptogram, a type of puzzle that consists of a short piece of encrypted text. In other words, just regular old plain text that has been run through a code. It's encoded. And then generally, the code that is used to encrypt the text is simple enough that the cryptogram can be solved. Now, what's a musical cryptogram? That's where you see a series of notes, and each of those notes is related to a letter in the alphabet. And so you convert the notes into letters, and you have the hidden message. So for example, if I play these four notes, I've played A, B, B, A, and I'm trying to communicate a name to you, and that's the code. Well, you may have already figured out A, B, B, A. That's ABBA. I'm trying to tell you about the band, ABBA. And so what I did was I took a series of notes, and from those notes, I got the letters for the name. Now, you can do this the other way. You can take a name, and from that name, you can find the notes that correspond to the notes on the keyboard, and then turn that into a series of notes. It was back around the 9th century that musicians started giving the notes letter names. We had A, B, C, and so on. And someone figured out that you could assign notes to the letters of names. Now, this didn't really become a recognized practice until the Romantic period in music. From the mid-19th century, it actually became quite common. So, to create a musical cryptogram, the composer would look for the letter names of the notes in someone's name, for example, and then create a motif, or if you want to use the other term, motif, based on those notes. And then you take that motif and put it into a composition. And you wouldn't know right away that it was there. Somebody's name was encoded within the music unless somebody who knew the code pointed it out to you. The most famous example of this is when somebody took the name Bach and said, hey, there's a lot of letters in Bach's name that correspond to the notes. And they came up with this motif. Now, I should mention that in German musical vocabulary, the note B is named H, and the B flat is named B. So we had B flat, A, C, and then H, which is our B. And so there's the Bach motif. And so Bach himself used this. Other composers used this musical cryptogram to write a composition. There's a famous piece by the composer Robert Schumann where he came up with this theme. This is based on the name Abegg. A, and then once again in the German system for naming notes, B is actually B flat. So A, B, E, G, G. And so he built this series of notes. He created a theme out of it. He did variations on it, basically created a motive, and then took variations on the motive, created a whole theme, and then he created a series of variations on that theme. So now you can take your own name and then find the musical notes in it and create a series of notes, which you can then use to create your own motive. So for example, if your name is Abigail, you have A, B, G, A. It's almost like the Bach motif. Or let's say your name is Heather, you have E, A, E. If your name is Aaron Jones, then you would have A, E. I think you're beginning to see now that if we create a musical cryptogram using just the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, some names are not going to work that well. Take my own name, for example, Leon Olguin, Leon. Well, you only end up with EG. That's not much to work with. Can't really build much of a motive. Well, maybe a little two-note motive. I mean, Beethoven did one with two notes. But then what if your name is Hill? You got nothing. What if your name is Smith? What if your name is Stravinsky, for that matter? So since the note names only cover letters A to G, which is reflecting the octave, and then, of course, the letters start to repeat, the problem arises, how do we encode, how do we assign note names to the rest of the alphabet? Now, historically, there have been two main solutions, which, for convenience sake, we can call the German solution and the French solution. Now, the German method, you remember that in the German-speaking world, B flat was our B, and B natural was named H. And the most famous musical cryptogram is the BACH motif. What the Germans tended to do is just simply ignore the other letters. They could only use the ones that were contained within the octave. And so composers who were less fortunate than Bach, well, they had to ignore those non-musical letters in generating their motives. So only certain names would work very well. But we also have the French method. The French method of generating musical cryptograms, that arose late in the 19th century, and it was more like a real secret code. Well, it was not so secret since everybody knew about it, and now you do too. But here's how it worked. It involved writing out the letters H through N, O through U, and V through Z in lines under the notes A through G. So you can see what that looks like. So using the French method, A, H, O, and V are encoded by the note A. B, I, and P, and W by B, B flat or B natural, and so on. Let's plug in my name again. E, A, G, A, E, G, G, B, G. In other words, it sounds like this. Well, that's better. We can do something with that. So here's what you can do. When you find the notes in your name, you can play the notes in order. Now notice there's no rhythm. It's just a bunch of notes, one after the other. So what I can do is add a rhythm to create a motive, to create a motif, if you like. So we could play it like this. Or we could do it this way. I kind of like the swinging version. That's my motive. That's created from my name using the French method. And then I can develop that motive using the methods that we've studied. In other words, I can repeat it. I can also use an exact sequence where I repeat it, but then I change where it is. That was an exact sequence. The intervals were exactly the same. It goes up a fourth, down a whole step, down a fourth, up a minor third, up a major third, and then back down. Does the same thing here. We can do a modified sequence where the intervals are a little bit different. Something like that. Or repetition with variation. Now we can also add chords. We could try, for example, adding a C major chord. Or we could try A minor because E is part of the A minor chord. And then those two notes are actually part of E minor, so it could sound like this. And so we can use an exact sequence. Well, you can see I'm starting to write a piece based on my own name by using this musical cryptogram. Try it with your own name. Let me know what you come up with. You can even record it with your phone. You can send it to me, and I'll leave the address in the comments section where you can send it. You can email it to me. Just let me hear the original series of notes, even if you have no rhythm, no accompaniment, and I may be able to use it to write a piano piece. And I can show you in another video exactly what I can do with your motive and then put it all on this channel. Even with this system, which gives you a lot more to work with, there is a limit to what you can do. And maybe you are beginning to see what those limits might be. I encourage you to stay tuned for part 2 of Fun with Musical Cryptograms. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate those of you who have taken the time to subscribe. I know there are many more watching who are not subscribed yet, so now's your chance. I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.